I come from the consulting world. 2 years ago, I was their consultant and somehow got in the mix of becoming their employee. I was brought on to lead the S4 transformation, and I'll talk about the reasons why I was brought in to lead the transformation. So a little more details. We've got about 45,000 people, annual revenues, 21 billion per year, basically. I talked about the products already, and we have had some recent transformations and reorganizations, and our SAP project had to adjust. One of the reasons why we paused and replanned and rolled out a new version of the project to adjust to some of the reorganizations, refocus we had to basically shift from a regional base to more of a category and segment based program. Because if you all remember the keynote from Patrick from NBC Universal, he came from technology, went to business, and the key message, a lot of us are technologists, myself included, and so is Patrick. But at the end of the day, those who usually pay for these projects are the business stakeholders. And they don't care about the migration path or the requirement to go to S4HANA or cleaning the core. They know that's a means to an end, but the end is they need a purpose. They need value. And that was those were some of the drivers for our project as well. And I'll talk about those. So back to my techie roots. So what is that Kimberly-Clark? So we've had SAP since the early 2000s. That was ECC. We started out with 4 instances. We're based in North America, so our primary instance was North America. Our other 3 instances were Europe, Asia, and Latin America. So those were our ECC instances. And when I came on board, those are 20-plus-year-old systems. It was high time for an upgrade. So that's one of the reasons why they brought me in. There's some other reasons as well. So those 4 landscapes, each of those landscapes had your typical dev, quality, pre-prod, and prod. So each system had 4, so 4 times 4 is 16. That's the 16 instances. That's our current state or previous state where I started from. And each of those environments have an N+1. N+1 meaning we had different parallel instances. We also had different connected systems as well, so that we had to shift quickly from one instance to another, especially for the connected environments. We're connected to Coupa, we're connected to Workday, Blackline, Snowflake, Salesforce, a lot of the usual suspects that maybe a lot of your companies have as well. We did too, and our SAP environments across the 4 landscapes and 16 instances had to have N+1 equivalents too. In some cases, due to budget restrictions, software licensing, et cetera, sometimes we had shared environments where there was only one. There was no N+1, there was N only. So that involved a lot of flipping between the environments to connect to our N+1 environments as well. Ultimately, 4 years ago when the project started, 2 years before I joined, we had the goal of one global template, so one instance. And then we, 2 years into the project, had some reasons, some business reorganization changes, some refocusing of the business priorities that required the project to be stopped, reassessed, replanned, and rolled out with new leadership, myself included. Were brought in to lead this new effort, and I'll go over those details next. So, those details included why did we pause the global template and replan 2 years into the project? And why did we change that into a North America focus? Well, the reasons were quite complex. Some of these are reasons. One reason was perceived risk by the business for downtime. So it's number 3 here, but it was probably number 1 reason. Minimize downtime. The original intent of one global template and a greenfield approach required, per our one dominant systems integrator, it required potentially several days to a couple of weeks of downtime for cutover. And in our business, we manufacture consumer packaged goods. Think of a pack of Cottonelle toilet paper, or even a box of Huggies, or a few boxes of Kleenex in one package. Low price, low margin, so we have to continuously manufacture these goods, crank them out and roll them out. We have factories around the world running 24/7, manufacturing these products, sending them to distribution centers to be shipped over to our customers. We don't sell directly to consumers. Our customers are the Walmarts, the Targets, the Costcos, the Krogers, basically the big box stores. And if any of you and your companies do business with these big box stores, they are quite demanding. And there are certain contract agreements, certain stock out agreements where you have to fulfill your supply to them. Otherwise, if you're late, there are penalties. You don't have to pay the penalty, but basically it chops down the price of what they have to pay for your goods. So yeah, we required significantly low downtime, and our business users, especially in North America, said, wait, we cannot have a week or two of downtime. Our factories need to keep on running. We know we could make some excess stock and store them in our warehousing, but that's warehousing cost. And if the 1 week turns into 2 weeks or possibly longer because of the risk of a greenfield, that's unacceptable. So basically, our business stakeholders put a stop to the project, said, please stop, pause, reassess, and let's think of other options. And that was the Global Template Project. So we carved out just North America, which is half of our revenue, but a more focused approach to North America to get some additional opinions. So we got the opinion from the one dominant systems integrator there. We also brought in SAP as a vendor, and we brought in multiple other vendors for their opinions on why we should maybe reconsider the global template and shift focus into a smaller scope of North America instead. So some of those reasons are there. Minimal changes to the current landscape. Legacy integrations were key. I mentioned all the N+1 connections. There was high perceived risk of breaking connections with those legacy systems. SAP does represent 60% of our business applications, but a good 40% are represented by those other applications, the Workday, the Coupa, the Blackline, the Snowflake, the Salesforce, Blue Yonder, and other dominant systems as well that were not quite as dominant as SAP, but together they represented about 40% of the IT ecosystem out there. So it was decided to pause and replan. And when we paused and replanned, we brought in SAP and other vendors for their points of view, including Basis Technologies. The decision had already been made to use Basis Technologies to augment, support, and optimize DevSecOps and transport strategy, but we also needed some other opinions of how we're going to implement this thing. So as I mentioned in the agenda, no spoiler, we switched from the Greenfield Global Template, I think I have a laser pointer here, Greenfield Global Template, to a Brownfield approach of just North America. And most of you probably heard about what's the difference between Greenfield, Brownfield, and the middle road, Bluefield. We assessed all three options. We brought in SAP and other parties to give their opinions. And SAP, they did their normal readiness assessment. If any of you have done your S4 implementation already or about to, you probably did, or SAP or you could run the report yourself, did a readiness assessment, which shows how ready is your ECC system for an upgrade. How many RISEFs do you have? How many opportunities to use standard? So on and so forth. And SAP, with their readiness assessment, determined that based on the number of customizations we had, doing a comparison of what is standard in S4 versus what we had customized, we had I can't say the exact number, but over 20,000-ish RISEFs out there where SAP said we don't have an equivalent in S4HANA. So they said with our tight timelines and our requirement for minimized downtime, SAP recommended do a brownfield instead. Another word for brownfield is lift and shift or technical upgrade. Keep most of the RISEFs. There were some that we could easily chop down, but there were some that SAP had no standard equivalent. So SAP said, do a brownfield, lift and shift for North America first, and then maybe later on, you can consider greenfield for the rest of the world. So that's what we did. We did a shift to a brownfield approach instead. And along with the brownfield approach, as I mentioned, ActiveControl through Basis Technologies was still the chosen solution, and it was mandated by our enterprise architects that it's the best approach for transport management and sequencing. I've been an SAP functional person, development person, sometimes basis person myself, and I've used Transport Organizer, Soulman, and we used to use Realtek, a competitor. And those tools are good, but it's more manual. And I, as an ABAP developer, functional consultant, working with other consultants and other project members have had issues where transports, if the sequencing is wrong, they could literally step on each other. I use analogies and stories a lot. One analogy that I have is, in my house, I have, it's two-story, and I have basically lights upstairs, which can be controlled by 3 switches. One by the kids' room, one by the parents' room, me and my wife, and one downstairs. So I'd say, lights out, kids, or I used to say it when they were young, and I'd turn out the lights from downstairs. The kid would reach out, turn it back on, because they're scared of the dark. And then my wife would say, no, lights off. So she'd turn it off from her side, but then I needed to walk upstairs, so I'd turn on the lights, and the kids would turn off the lights again, saying, Mom said lights off, while I was walking up the stairs and nearly stumbling. So think of a transport like that. Sometimes transports do configuration, sometimes developments. Sometimes transports are just turning off an SICF switch or some activated service, but if you hit the switch, just like those 3 different light switches, you might want it on, but somebody will turn it off. Somebody else will turn it on, you might turn it on. Somebody may want to purposely leave a table open, but another team would want to turn it off. So that's the sequencing of transport, and maybe a little bit of analogy, where ActiveControl does a very good job of looking forward and looking back as well, or shift left. I'll talk a little bit about that, which actually is right there. Shift left analysis. That's basically, think of the algorithms or AIs, thinking forward or thinking backward of what's a prerequisite. Oh yeah, dad needs the lights off to force the kids to go to sleep, but the kids are scared of the dark, so they want it on, but mom says, no, it's supposed to be off, and then, dad says, I actually need it on because I need to walk upstairs and not fall down. So it actually thinks about, why is a service on or off, or why is something done, and where is a prerequisite? A prerequisite may be in a preceding transport. And I've moved transports manually before, where I myself had made a mistake and missed a prerequisite transport. Well, ActiveControl has certain features that does the shift left analysis, to look at prerequisites, to look at subsequent transports and dependencies between different transports. And it does that in a semi-automated fashion after you set it up to run manually. Finally, another major feature of ActiveControl is the parallel track maintenance. I mentioned we had 4 environments, over 16 instances, and then we had N+1 environments. Well, we had ActiveControl connected to each of those, but we had business rules also to say that ActiveControl may enforce its rules over dev when we're doing development. But don't put those transport into quality just yet, and definitely don't put them into production yet, because they're not tested yet. And ActiveControl monitored all the transport management sequencing, shift left analysis across dev, quality, pre-prod, and prod, and at the appropriate levels based on the settings in ActiveControl. We're able to control them from dev, quality, pre-prod, and prod, and the business rules applied to the different instances when it was the right time. So parallel track maintenance, think of trains. So there's usually not just one track, there's multiple tracks. One train will go down one, but you have to sequence it with the other trains and then shift it over, and sometimes manage multiple trains running on multiple tracks. So that's kind of an analogy for parallel track maintenance. So, as I mentioned, the ActiveControl timeline, we chose to use ActiveControl for transport management and DevSecOps. Basically, several years ago, I mentioned the beginning of the project. So 2022 was actually a little bit before we decided ActiveControl is the way to go instead of just standard transport organizers, standard Soulman, and instead of using our previous tool, Realtech. So it was decided to use ActiveControl from the beginning of the global template. And as we moved into the replanning that was unexpected, we still decided in terms of the whole big picture for a DevSecOps initiative. Sometimes DevSecOps is called CI/CD, continuous improvement, continuous development. ActiveControl, even when we paused the global template and replanned, ActiveControl was still the best solution for not only transport management, but for DevSecOps compliance as well, compliance with CI/CD goals of ours, and continuous improvement along a more agile methodology that I'll talk about as well. So in 2023, that's approximately the time we decided to pause the global template, replan, and then move forward using different systems integrators, combination of systems integrators, large and small, more KC or Kimberly-Clark people. We had a lot of technical folks and a lot of business folks. Get more business people involved, skin in the game, so that they don't block us in the end partially. And partially because they had a lot of talent. A lot of them had prior SAP implementation experience too, just like myself, 20 plus years of consulting and SAP employees. So we had equal engagement between parties, multiple parties, not just one SI, but multiple parties. So as we move forward, finally in 2024, we went live with North America. It was a successful go-live, smashing success. I'll talk about some of the details there where we were congratulated. Christian Klein, the CEO of SAP, reached out to our CEO and said, "Congratulations on your successful go-live," which was basically on time, slightly early, and basically on budget, but slightly less in budget, but we say on time, on budget. And some details around that of how the project was planned for 18 months. We got it down to 14. And within that time frame, over the cutover period, this is the cutover period. Cutover period, the business requirement was 48 hours or less downtime. So basically a weekend. Our business folks said, yeah, maybe we could go down in production for 2 days. Over Friday through Sunday night. That might be okay. We might be able to make enough product, store extra product to ship it off to Costco, Kroger, Target, Walmart, Sam's, all those demanding customers in time so that we have enough safety stock, basically. So within that 48-hour downtime, it consisted of business downtime, which would be done after the technical downtime, and the technical downtime as well. Technical downtime, we engaged SAP primarily for that. SAP, they assured us lower technical downtime by first proposing NZDT, near zero downtime. That's a methodology and set of tools that SAP developed, and I understand that it's still now only proprietary to SAP, the NZDT. There were some issues. It was an early product, so SAP pulled back. We started with NZDT. We shifted over to their second newest methodology and tool set called DOC, Downtime Optimized Conversion, which used to be an SAP-only tool, but sometime while we were implementing the North America project, DOC was released to other consulting partners, so other consulting partners can now do DOC. So with the combination of NZDT, near zero downtime, and DOC, Downtime Optimized Conversion methodology and tools that were mostly SAP proprietary, we got an estimate of approximately 18 hours of technical downtime. So 48 minus 18, that's the balance that the business has to do catching up of batch jobs. Some of the manual activities that a business has to do once the system is back up and running, reprocessing orders, backlog orders, and that type of thing. So the estimate was approximately 12 hours. We went from like 20 hours of technical downtime to 18 to about 17-ish, and we actually whittled it down to about 12, but in the actual cutover, because we practiced it so much, it was actually down to 5 hours. The reason why we practiced it so much, we had many cloned systems. I forget the exact number, I'll have to look up my notes, but we also had multiple practice sessions. So think of mocks. A lot of projects have Mach 1, Mach 2, Mach 3. We had the equivalent of 8 mocks. They're called cycles. Cycle 1 through cycle 8, we practiced it over and over again. We were heading into the Microsoft Azure private cloud, so we had hyperscalers as well. And SAP and we and Microsoft partnered with having multiple cloned systems where we were able to quickly switch over from one to another. Oh, and by the way, we went live on July 22nd, and if you all remember, during that weekend, something else big happened. Does anyone remember? This last July. CrowdStrike, bingo, you get a prize. CrowdStrike happened, so we had our command center. We wanted to call it a war room, but it had negative connotations. And our company's motto is better care, better world, all positive stuff. So we said, don't call it a war room, call it a command room, command center. We had a command center running 24/7 in our US sites. I'm in Roswell, Georgia. Also one in Dallas and one in Neenah, Wisconsin, our original headquarters, and one in Bangalore, India, our offshore delivery center, and our CDTO, which is equivalent of a CIO, and CTO and other CX levels at different times during the night of CrowdStrike popped into our command center because they were added as optional to pop in whenever they want. And we had these giant screens, about 3 times the size of this, and imagine a big picture of the CDTO looming over, but he was all still. We thought, oh, okay, nice background. No, it was him in live, and he said in a booming voice, did you guys and gals get hit by CrowdStrike? So actually the answer was we ourselves did not, but Microsoft, our partner, was to an extent because they're Azure servers, some of them are dependent on CrowdStrike, but with the multiple practice cycles, one thing that SAP, we and Microsoft practiced a lot was switching over between the different hyperscaler servers, the clone systems over the 8 cycles. So Microsoft, we did have an hour, maybe almost 2 hours of extra downtime for Microsoft to switch over to another hyperscaler that wasn't hit by CrowdStrike, but we saved enough time to really catch up, and a lot of the partners and tool sets we had, including ActiveControl, helped us quickly pump in the transports. Once the flipped over other clone not affected by CrowdStrike was stood up with S/4HANA version 2022 with all the service packs and ready to receive transports, but not through the standard transport organizer, which is fast enough, but with the rule sets and other optimization features of ActiveControl accelerated that process. So that's how we got the 5 hours of technical downtime. We still had the business downtime, but during that night, I volunteered to go and oversee my team, but I was doing the same for the whole week before for practice. So they said, Charles, stay back, come in when you want. So I came in right around hour 6 or 7, and nobody was there. I thought, oh no, CrowdStrike did hit us. They all freaked out and they left. And then 1 or 2 of them wandered in, munching on some snacks, looked all chipper. I thought, oh, this guy's really gone off the edge. They said, no, we actually finished early. Our 18 hours went to 12 hours, went to 5 hours, and we were amazed, but pleasantly amazed. So over the weekend, basically instead of the 48-hour downtime, we actually achieved 46, 47-ish with some extra time when we slowed down to give the team a break. And the business was able to catch up and do their processing to get ready for business as usual Monday morning. And it was mostly a non-event for the business. So the biggest risk that the business was worried about was avoided. So sometimes, the saying, no news is good news. Well, there was no news of, hey, business, sorry, you can't order, you can't manufacture. Just Monday, early morning, a couple, or actually a few hours early, they got the email, oh, your SAP system's up and running, just continue as usual, or we're ready a little early. So, and that's what got the attention of the SAP CEO, who knew this was going on, knew CrowdStrike happened. He reached out to our CEO and said, hey, congratulations, and can you tell us your secret sauce, or how did you do it? And we also congratulated him back that it was a partnership between SAP, between a couple other systems integrators, staff augmenters, different tools providers, enabler providers, including ActiveControl, Basis Technologies, and some really talented people with a lot of experience. So now we're going to flip over to just an interactive session. David and I will just banter back and forth with some common questions, and we'll open it up to Q&A.
Yeah, so start having a think about some of your questions. Shall I take the clicker? Or?
Yeah, go ahead. Let me give the clicker to you.
Thank you. So there's a couple of obvious questions. First one, just to kind of start off with, kind of what's next? Charles, what are you looking at now that the North America S4 is completed?
What are we looking at next? First of all, that grand scheme or grand plan of a global template, it's still being planned. Well, it's not being planned, it's being executed. It was still on the table. We upgraded North America, that represents half the business, but we still need to do the rest of the world, the other half of the business. They're still on ECC, although it's not exactly the purpose. We as technology folks know that we need to get to S4 by 2027-ish, otherwise we go on extended maintenance. So we still are on the path to upgrade the rest of the world, and we immediately got started on that. We did have a little bit of a head start. One of our strategies was to have multi-vendor support. So instead of picking one big consultant, we picked many. And as we were going live with North America, another new systems integrator basically picked up the slack, continued running with the previous global template effort to build out what was remaining with the same greenfield approach. Just to continue, it was a good design. It was a great plan. It's just maybe a little too big. So we engaged another partner to continue down that road because we still have to upgrade the rest of the world. So that's part of what's next. There's more too. So what's next? What else is next on the roadmap? We started the journey down DevSecOps. We need to get further down the DevSecOps road. Continuous improvement, continuous development, CI/CD. And also, we want to take advantage of other solutions and services of Basis Technologies, including ActiveDiscover. If you want to learn more, we can get you details. We're limited on time, but the Basis Technologies booth downstairs has full details on that, and it's got a lot of different features to do assessments. And you know, we hear a lot of the buzz of AI and all that. A lot of that, the concepts of AI and actually doing assessments and really scouring through the technology of the underlying code and configuration, ActiveDiscover does that. And we want to explore the features of ActiveDiscover next because we set up ActiveControl for release management and DevSecOps, knowing that there are other solutions and services provided by Basis Technologies to really accelerate other areas, including our DevSecOps and Agile transformation initiatives, as we continue down the road of the global template S4.
I don't need to be here. Charles is doing a great job selling our capabilities.
I researched.
I know your focus was on the S4 program, and in parallel to that, we've been working with another part of KCC around what you're internally referring to as DevSecOps, which is kind of targeting to get closer to a zero-touch deployment with a lot of automation, with ActiveControl, with the kind of the integration to ADO, which you're using from an enterprise standpoint, and with other kind of tooling or automation around testing, with Selenium, et cetera. Can you tell us a bit more about what kind of how you think that's going to continue to evolve?
Yeah, I could talk to some of that where direct orders from David's the CTO of Basis Technologies. Our CTO at KC, who's my boss, reminded me at a recent planning meeting as we're kicking off the rest of the global template that we need more automation. We need to have more efficiencies, more enablers to also get us quickly to the finish line of the global transformation as well, while being compliant with DevSecOps, while being compliant with CI/CD, and going down the agile transformation road too. Because as we all know who've implemented SAP, SAP isn't exactly agile, it's more cascade, waterfall, or traditional, but a lot of companies have the agile mission. And I've actually done a few other S4 projects where we combined agile with waterfall to have a hybrid approach. Think of best of both worlds. I use analogies and stories a lot. I'm a car guy, so I'm a big proponent of hybrid cars because it's both gas and electricity. When your battery runs down, hey, gas kicks in and you can have best of both worlds. A similar thing with my SAP S4 implementations. I'm going on my 5th now. And I've seen a more hybrid approach be very successful yeah, it's going to be agile. Oh, well, it's going to be what used to be called ASAP or activate methodology. And combining that with agile, it actually can work. And by the way, I am also a Agile Scrum certified product owner too, so I've learned that side as well. But I've also learned that you could, just like you can have a hybrid car, you can have a hybrid methodology approach too. And our CTO, he's got an SAP background too, but he also is a big proponent of agile transformation, DevSecOps. He's a CTO, but he has a limited budget, limited resources, and the end goal of our company is to make great products, personal care products. And our business doesn't care about how we get there, but we get there at low cost, high efficiency, in an agile manner. So that's next, and that's where ActiveControl by Basis Technology and ActiveDiscover and their services can help enhance our path to get to the end goal of an agile transformation, even faster, more effectively, even with the limited number of people and resources that we have.
Let's throw it open. Are there any questions in the room? I saw a hand going up.
You first, sir, in the black.
So now that you've had this great success, are you getting pushback from the business like, hey, now that you've had a big success, are you getting pushback from the business like, hey, you sandbagged us, this was easy, you should have done it? And if so, how are you educating them that it wasn't?
Change management is a big area. So yeah, that's always going to be difficult, especially the business, those who say, hey, we're business, we started out in the factory shop floor, I'm now in the office, but I don't understand any of your IT stuff. We have different folks who are a combination of business and IT who act as sort of translators. They're in our change management team. So we have a great change management team and change management partners in the form of consultants too, who used to be business and technology. Think of a bilingual person. They're sort of bilingual. They speak business, they speak tech, but they can adjust and use examples to really make the business comfortable. And the way we did it for North America was, well, for a global template, initially we had one systems integrator that basically said, we've done this several times, let us have control, we could do it, your business will love it. Not exactly so. For North America, when we planned, part of the replanning was, okay, in the business, basically we took volunteers. Who in the business had, especially those who had the highest demands and most pushback against a global template, which of you want to be leaders in this transformation? You don't have to be an SAP person. You don't even have to be an IT person. We'll give you a seat at the table so you could watch how things are. Try it out if you want, and really help course correct us along the way. And that really helped us for our North America project, and for this global template, this resumed global template effort, we took that same approach. It was still greenfield, it was still global template, but a big change we did was to involve the business more. We didn't have a dominant SI. Business, basically, they were in the driver's seat. And we said, okay, those of you who are in North America who volunteered from the business, do you want to continue and help drive the global template side? And a lot of them did. Some of them said, no, we want to go back to the business where this IT stuff is giving me a headache. And then others in the business said, hey, we want to jump on board this train as well, because we've got a certain stake on the global side, and we want to make sure you cover these things. So we said, okay, you could be a co-driver, and we added more business folks to the team. We have a steer co and a change control board that's dominated by the business folks instead of, we have consultants as well and techie people like myself, I'm on the board, but we have others from the business leaders as well, and they are clearly the drivers, and we gave them the free rein to, once again, stop the project. Raise your hand. If one of you raises your hand, that's enough to stop the train, and let's think about it, reassess again, and they feel more comfortable with that. And our change management teams, multiple teams, they were very key in that. Very tight change management, tight communication, and bi-directional understanding. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah.